Welcome to Rise and Shine Daily Business Tech Boost with me, Charly Leetham. If you're a small business owner looking to simplify technology and get real, actionable advice from someone with 35 years of IT experience, you're in the right place. Every episode, I'll dive into tools and systems like email, CRM, marketing and tracking, and break them down into bite-sized tips you can use right away. Your time is valuable, so let's get straight to the point. It's time to work smarter, not harder. Rise and shine, it's your daily dose of business tech inspiration with me, Charly Leetham. Topic number 350 today, we're going to talk about firewalls and why they're important in safeguarding your business. Let's understand first of all what a firewall is. I'll talk about the different types of firewalls and then I'll talk about maintaining those firewalls. Let's start with, you are probably all aware that your computer has a firewall. If you're running Windows, it normally pops up and says, do you want to enable your firewall, or it will enable it automatically. Then when you're having troubles getting access to something, you sometimes are told, oh, you've got to go and allow that access through your firewall. Just go here and click this and do this thing and let it through. I'm not certain how many people understand what they're doing and what, and that's not meant to sound bad. It understand why they need to do it, and it's probably a good thing to go through how these things work, so you understand why you need to do some of these things and the implications of doing some of these things. The term firewall comes from construction or automotive. I'm not entirely certain, but the idea is that when you build something, you put a wall in that is fireproofed or has high fire rating, so that if something catches fire on one side, it doesn't automatically go through, so you get this firewall. Firewall in an IT sense is a similar thing, except what it does is it protects you, it firewalls you from the threats from the outside network. Now, if we go back a couple of podcasts ago, I was talking about a defense strategy of being crunchy on the outside and soft and gooey on the inside. Your firewalls are one of those bits about the crunchy on the outside, the really strong protection on the outside. They sit there, they act a bit like a knight with a shield. You shall not pass, none shall pass. And they stop things getting into your network, into your computer, into your network, and causing problems. Your firewalls are typically your first line of defense in your network security strategy. They look at the traffic, they control it. Let me try that one again. They look at traffic entering and leaving your network and they control it. They will stop unauthorized access. They will prevent cyber threats they try to prevent things like cyber threats, hackers, viruses, and malware from reaching your data and your systems. So if you think of them like the Black Knight or like the Knight on the bridge, none shall pass. That's what a firewall does. There's things to remember here, though. Data protection, firewalls safeguard sensitive business information. So the idea is that you stop people getting in, so that you put your really secure information, your really private information behind a firewall. That's the important thing to remember. Customer data, financial records, proprietary information. They often help you meet compliance. So they will help you meet your regulatory requirements for data protection. And their operational security, they help operational security by preventing attacks. They maintain business continuity. They help you maintain business continuity and protect against financial and reputational damage. So your firewall is that first line of defense against whatever is coming at you. Typically, a firewall will stop things getting in. Rarely do they stop you sending data out, although they can be configured to stop certain types of data getting out as well. So if you remember my analogy, crunchy on the outside, soft and gooey on the inside, your firewall is that first line of defense with that crunchy defense. It's really strong, and they do a really great job. You can have firewalls on your computer. So when you run up Windows, it'll enable a firewall, so you can protect your computer from the local network. On your internet router or your internet modem router, typically, you have a firewall there, so it stops the threats coming in from the internet into your network. So if you that there's two levels of firewalling that you've got on your network already, your own computer and your router. Your web server will generally have a firewall associated with it, and that stops traffic coming in from the network that is connected to the web server. And the network that your hosting provider is connected to and runs will also have at least one layer of firewall, if not more. So you've got multiple levels of firewall generally between you and the internet. You might not know it, you might not realize it, but they are there. Okay, so that's what a firewall is, and that's what they do for you. And so we chat about the different types of firewalls. And yes, I've got my notes here and I'm checking them. This is a bit of a technical one, and I want to try and make sure I get the information to you and keep it in business speak. Keep it in speak that that is easier to understand. So there are different types of firewall. First of all, we have hardware firewalls. So they are physical devices that protect an entire network, and they sit right at the top of, well, typically right at the top of the network, connected to the internet. Now they're physical boxes. We call them boxes, computers. They run very specific software, and their only function is to act as a firewall. Now we call them hardware firewalls. They are really good for businesses that need centralized security. So your hosting businesses will all run at least one level of hardware firewall, if not multiple. If you are in a corporation type business where it's more than just yourself, it is highly likely that your IT department have put firewalls in to protect your networks as well. If you're sitting in a home-based environment like I am, you typically don't run a hardware firewall. You absolutely can. You just typically don't. And the reason you don't is there is a cost to doing it. You not only need the hardware to do it, you need to have the software, and then you've got all the maintenance and upkeep on it. And I'm going to cover maintenance in a bit, but that's why you wouldn't necessarily have a dedicated hardware firewall on a home network or a small business network. But they are physical devices. Hardware firewalls are physical devices. You can typically say, "Where's your firewall?" and they'll point to a box and say, "That's one of our firewalls." They will normally run multiple ones. Software firewalls, which is the ones we're probably more familiar with, are installed on individual devices for tailored protection. They're useful for remote work or small networks where each device's security is managed separately. And that's what I was talking about. We've got a firewall on our computer. That's a software firewall. It runs within Windows typically, unless or if you're running one of the antivirus packages like Norton's or what are the other ones? Malwarebytes. They all have software firewalls enabled in them. You can enable them on those packages. Your router will have a software firewall. Yes, your router is a physical box, but it's not just there as your firewall. It is running a firewall and it is doing your routing. So the firewall runs as software on the router. So that's a software firewall. You can also then go to cloud-based firewalls or firewalls as a service, FWaaS. So I'm rolling my eyes. They're managed in the cloud, and they offer scalability and protection for cloud services or distributed networks. So I'm sure you've seen the ads come up on your hosting, or some of your hosting providers have come to you and said, "Hey, listen, we're now offering cloud-based firewalls." What they are is, rather than having they've still got their physical devices, but rather than running the firewall on your host, on your server itself, they'll take that function and they'll move it out into the network and give you that extra layer of protection. They work quite well. They can be expensive, and the reason they're expensive is they generally are world-class installations. You have the cost of the software. You do have the cost of the hardware that has to run on. So it's not a hardware firewall in that it's dedicated to your use, but it runs in the cloud. It runs on hardware that someone else operates for you. And you've got the cost of maintaining and managing that. So you're not managing and maintaining it anymore. Someone else is. They do work quite well. I would just advise that you do your homework before saying yes to using them. That's all. So now, and then there's also functionality based firewalls. So things that do packet filtering. They're basic security. They do basic security by checking packet headers, source destination ports. So these are really technical things, and they're very specific. You can run them as a hardware. It's on hardware firewalls. You can run them as software, but they do specific functions. They do stateful inspection, so they track connection states for to give us context aware security. This device is connected to this service that's doing this sort of thing. We need to watch for these sorts of threats. Application level gateways. So have you heard of proxy servers? Sometimes when you're setting up things, it says, are you using a proxy server? What a proxy server does is it, much like a firewall, it is a firewall. It just does it in a different way. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my head around this one to explain it. You will communicate with the proxy. The proxy server is normally a physical box. Your communication is between the proxy server and your computer, and the data only ever goes between your proxy server and your computer. The proxy server terminates your connection there. It then, putting a bit of a gap in digitally, ethereally, puts a bit of a gap in. It then creates a connection between it and the end device that you're communicating with. So your data only ever goes back and forwards between it and the proxy. The proxy breaks it, starts another connection. What that does is it makes it harder to snoop that connection. It makes it harder to get in and follow the connection back to your computer, because it gets to the proxy and there's no, except for the way the proxy maps it in memory when it's got the connection running, there is no other connection that says that your device is connected out into the internet. Works really well, and a lot of high level networks will run proxy servers as well as firewalls. Okay, so that's some of the functionality based firewalls that you can run. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's all out there. What I do want to highlight there though is that when someone says to you, you've got to allow this through your firewall, what the firewall is doing is saying this type of application is not allowed. And when we're talking about an application, or we communicate on ports, and a port is like, it's like a hole. It's a hole in your network, in your firewall, that data can come through and talk to you through, and you're allowing that data in. Most firewalls will say nothing can come in until you tell me what can come in. And we say, oh, well, you can allow mail in port 21, allow mail in port 21, that's FTP, sorry. Allow mail in. So we're going to open a little hole so that mail can come in and out of your network, into your network, not just it normally allows most things out, stops most things coming in. You start to open holes in the firewall to let the traffic in. When you're trying to communicate with a new type of service, it may communicate on a different port number, and that port number will be blocked by the firewall. So when it tries to communicate and it doesn't come through, and someone says, yeah, you've got to enable that in your firewall, what you're doing, understand what you're doing, is you are opening another hole in the firewall to let that traffic in. It's not a bad thing, but it's also something you need to be aware of, that if you are constantly having to open ports and allow traffic through your firewall, you're taking something that is really, really hard and crunchy and letting it open up, and you're reducing the amount of protection that device can give you. So it's really worthwhile just bearing in mind when someone says you've got to allow that through the firewall, to make sure that you really do, make sure that there's not another problem that you need to deal with first. Just be aware of it. Which then brings me to the maintenance of your firewall. Uh, Regardless of what type of firewall you're running, you do need to make sure that you keep it updated regularly. And how many podcasts have I done recently about keep your software updated? The same thing again. Make sure that if you're running a hardware firewall, make sure the firmware is updated, make sure your software is updated, and keep the signatures, the file that says these are the threats that we've got to protect against, keep that updated. You've got to do that regularly. On your computers, on your like your laptops and such, where you're running Windows or iOS, keep that patched as well. When you see those security patches come through, make sure you're applying them immediately or as close to immediately as possible. Keep your updates going. Keep your updates happening. Don't fall into the habit of she'll be right. Keeping your security top notch is really important. Do regular configuration checks. Every now and again, open up your firewall application, have a look at what's allowed through. Make sure that you haven't opened up something while you were testing something and forgotten to close it. I've done that. I mean, I play around with these things, so that's a possibility. But you make sure you periodically review and adjust your firewall rules, what you're allowing through, what's not allowed through, and ensure that they match your security needs as your business grows and evolves, and threats emerge as well. If you can, turn logging and monitoring services on. Regularly review your logs to detect unusual activities or attempted breaches. It can often tell you of potential vulnerabilities or changes that you might need to make to the policy for the firewall itself or to your security policy as well. So checking your logs is really important. Performance tuning, we're now getting into some really deep stuff here. Sometimes you will notice that it's slow. Your network is slow. Why is my network? It's so slow. It's slowed right down. Sometimes it's just the firewall is stopping too much traffic. It's too crunchy, and it's stopping it. So you've got to these reviews that you do will help you ensure that your network is running as well as it can do while still being secure. Sorry, I'm just going through my notes. Yeah. Make sure your staff is aware of the importance of keeping your firewalls enabled, not turning them off on their computers, if that's the policy that you've got. Make sure they understand that when someone says, oh, just allow this through the firewall, they don't just go in and allow it through, that they check, they meet your policy, they go through any change request and change policy, change control process that you have. Really important that your staff is as aware of the security implications as you are yourself. Have backups of your firewall configurations in case the worst happens and something goes poof and you've got to do a disaster recovery scenario. Make sure you have backups of those configurations saved off somewhere. And every now and again, consider having someone come in and do a security audit and have a look at where your vulnerabilities are, where you're doing well, where you can improve, because that's going to enhance not just your firewall strategy, it's going to help you with your whole security strategy as well. Alrighty, so that one might be a bit heavy. I would love to know what you think. Was that useful to you? Did it answer any questions that you had that you didn't know you had even? Has it given you things to think about as you're moving forward with your business and trying to make sure you're as secure as possible whilst still being able to perform the business that you do? I would love to know. Please leave me some comments wherever you are watching or listening to this video. You can come and join me on my locals channel, askcharlyleetham.locals.com. I would love to have you join the conversation over there. You can send me a DM on any of our social networks channels and I will respond to you. I might take a little while to respond to the social networks, but I will respond. Apart from that, guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Please, please, please like the video so that it helps me get these videos out there. And if you haven't already, ring the notification bell so you find out when I drop my next piece of content. Tomorrow we are going to be talking about securing our business email accounts. As you probably gathered, I'm doing a whole security thing at the moment, so we'll go through that. I will see you all tomorrow, and I'm wishing you a very safe day. Bye. Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost. I hope today's episode gave you some actionable insights that will make your business tech work smarter for you. If you found value, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other small business owners who could use a daily boost. For more tips, tools, and resources, visit www.askcharlyleetham.com. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and let's make tech simple together.